The Coyote canis latrans, also known as the American jackal, prairie wolf, or brush wolf, is a species of canine native to North America. It is smaller than its close relative, the gray wolf, and slightly smaller than the closely related eastern wolf and red wolf. It fills much of the same ecological niche as the golden jackal does in Eurasia. However, the coyote is generally larger. The coyote is listed as least concern by the International Union for Conservation of Nature due to its wide distribution and abundance throughout North America. The species is versatile, able to adapt to and expand into environments modified by humans. Urban coyotes are common in many cities. The coyote was sighted in eastern Panama across the Panama Canal from their home range for the first time in 2013. The coyote has 19 recognized subspecies. The average male weighs 8 to 20 kilograms, 18 to 44 pounds, and the average female 7 to 18 kilograms, 15 to 40 pounds. Their fur color is predominantly light gray and red or fulvous interspersed with black and white, though it varies somewhat with geography. It is highly flexible in social organization, living either in a family unit or in loosely knit packs of unrelated individuals. Primarily carnivorous, its diet consists mainly of deer, rabbits, hares, rodents, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and invertebrates, though it may also eat fruits and vegetables on occasion. Its characteristic vocalization is a howl made by solitary individuals. Humans are the coyote's greatest threat, followed by cougars and gray wolves. Despite predation by gray wolves, coyotes sometimes mate with them and with eastern or red wolves, producing coywolf hybrids. In the northeastern regions of North America, the eastern coyote, a larger subspecies, though still smaller than wolves, is the result of various historical and recent matings with various types of wolves. Genetic studies show that most North American wolves contain some level of coyote DNA. The coyote is a prominent character in Native American folklore, mainly in Arido-America, usually depicted as a trickster that alternately assumes the form of an actual coyote or a man. As with other trickster figures, the coyote uses deception and humor to rebel against social conventions. The animal was especially respected in Mesoamerican cosmology as a symbol of military might. After the European colonization of the Americas, it was seen in Anglo-American culture as a cowardly and untrustworthy animal. Unlike wolves, which have seen their public image improve, attitudes towards the coyote remain largely negative. Description: a close-up of a mountain coyote. C.L. Lesty's head. Coyote males average 8 to 20 kilograms, 18 to 44 pounds in weight, while females average 7 to 18 kilograms, 15 to 40 pounds, though size varies geographically. Northern subspecies, which average 18 kilograms, 40 pounds, tend to grow larger than the southern subspecies of Mexico, which average 11.5 kilograms, 25 pounds. Total length ranges on average from 1.0 to 1.35 meters, 3 feet 3 in 2 for feet 5 in, comprising a tail length of 40 centimeters, 16 in, with females being shorter in both body length and height. The largest coyote on record was a male killed near Afton, Wyoming, on November 19, 1937, which measured 1.5 meters for feet 11 in from nose to tail, and weighed 34 kilograms, 70. Scent glands are located at the upper side of the base of the tail and are a bluish-black color. The color and texture of the coyote's fur vary somewhat geographically. The hair's predominant color is light gray and the red or fulvous, interspersed around the body with black and white. Coyotes living at high elevations tend to have more black and gray shades than their desert-dwelling counterparts, which are more fulvous or whitish-gray. The coyote's fur consists of short, soft underfur and long, coarse guard hairs. The fur of northern subspecies is longer and denser than in southern forms, with the fur of some Mexican and Central American forms being almost hispid bristly. Generally, adult coyotes, including coywolf hybrids, have a sable coat color, dark neonatal coat color, bushy tail with an active supracaudal gland, and a white facial mask. 12 albinism is extremely rare in coyotes. Out of a total of 750 100,000 coyotes killed by federal and cooperative hunters between March 1938 and June 1945, only 2 were albinos. The coyote is typically smaller than the gray wolf, but has longer ears and a relatively larger brain case, 7 as well as a thinner frame, face, and muzzle. The scent glands are smaller than the gray wolf's, but are the same color, 9. Its fur color variation is much less varied than that of a wolf. 13. The coyote also carries its tail downwards when running or walking, rather than horizontally as the wolf does. History. At the time of the European colonization of the Americas, coyotes were largely confined to open plains and arid regions of the western half of the continent. 17. In early post-Columbian historical records, determining whether the writer is describing coyotes or wolves is often difficult. One record from 1750 in Kaskaskia, Illinois, written by a local priest, noted that the wolves encountered there were smaller and less daring than European wolves. Another account from the early 1800s in Edwards County mentioned wolves howling at night, though these were likely coyotes. 18. This species was encountered several times during the Lewis and Clark Expedition 180–1806, though it was already well known to European traders on the upper Missouri. Meriwether Lewis, writing on the 5th of May 1805 in northeastern Montana, described the coyote in these terms. The small wolf or burrowing dog of the prairies are the inhabitants, almost invariably, of the open plains. They usually associate in bands of 10 or 12, sometimes more, and burrow near some pass or place much frequented by game. Not being able alone to take deer or goat, they are rarely ever found alone, but hunt in bands. They frequently watch and seize their prey near their burrows. In these burrows, they raise their young, and to them they also resort when pursued. When a person approaches them, they frequently bark, their note being precisely that of the small dog. They are of an intermediate size between that of the fox and dog, very active, fleet, and delicately formed. The ears large, erect, and pointed, the head long and pointed more like that of the fox, tail long. The hair and fur also resembles the fox, though is much coarser and inferior. They are of a pale reddish-brown color. The eye of a deep sea green color, small and piercing. Their claws are rather longer than those of the ordinary wolf or that common to the Atlantic states, none of which are to be found in this quarter, nor I believe above the River Platte. The coyote was first scientifically described by naturalist Thomas Say in September 1819 on the site of Lewis and Clark's Council Bluffs, 24 kilometers 15 miles up the Missouri River from the mouth of the Platte, during a government-sponsored expedition with Major Stephen Long. He had the first edition of the Lewis and Clark journals in hand, which contained Biddle's edited version of Lewis's observations dated the 5th of May 1805. His account was published in 1823. Say was the first person to document the difference between. 46 proposed that the genus Canis was the descendant of the coyote like Eusine and its remains first appeared in the Miocene 6 million years ago in the southwestern U.S. and Mexico. By the Pliocene 5 the larger Canis lepophagus 47 appeared in the same region, and by the early Pleistocene 1 Miocelatrans the coyote was in existence. They proposed that the progression from Eusine to C. lepophagus to the coyote was linear evolution. C. latrans and C. aureus are closely related to C. edwardi, a species that appeared earliest, spanning the mid-Blanc and late Pliocene to the close of the Irvingtonian late Pleistocene, and coyote remains indistinguishable from C. latrans were contemporaneous with C. edwardi in North America. 49. Johnston describes C. lepophagus as having a more slender skull and skeleton than the modern coyote. 50. Ronald Novak found that the early populations had small, delicate, narrowly proportioned skulls that resemble small coyotes and appear to be ancestral to C. latrans. C. lepophagus was similar in weight to modern coyotes, but had shorter limb bones that indicate a less cursorial lifestyle. The coyote represents a more primitive form of Canis than the gray wolf, as shown by its relatively small size and its comparatively narrow skull and jaws, which lack the grasping power necessary to hold the large prey and which wolves specialize. This is further corroborated by the coyote's sagittal crest, which is low or totally flattened, thus indicating a weaker bite than the wolves. The coyote is not a specialized carnivore as the wolf is, as shown by the larger chewing surfaces on the molars, reflecting the species' relative dependence on vegetable matter. In these respects, the coyote resembles the fox-like progenitors of the genus more so than the wolf. The oldest fossils that fall within the range of the modern coyote date to 0.74 to 0.85 million years in Hamilton Cave, West Virginia, 0.73 ma in Irvington, California, 0.35 to 0.48 ma in Porcupine Cave, Colorado, and in Cumberland Cave, Pennsylvania, 53. Modern coyotes arose 1,000 years after the Quaternary extinction event, 54. Compared to their modern Holocene counterparts, Pleistocene coyotes C.L. or Coyote were larger and more robust, likely in response to larger competitors and prey. 50 for Pleistocene coyotes were likely more specialized carnivores than their descendants, as their teeth were more adapted to shearing meat, showing fewer grinding surfaces suited for processing vegetation. 55. Their reduction in size occurred within 1,000 years of the Quaternary extinction event, when their large prey died out. 54. Furthermore, Pleistocene coyotes were unable to exploit the big game hunting niche left vacant after the extinction of the dire wolf Anoceon dirus, as it was rapidly filled by gray wolves, which likely actively killed off the large coyotes, with natural selection favoring the modern gracile morph. DNA evidence, a skeleton of a Pleistocene coyote C.L. or Coyote. In 1993, a study proposed that the wolves of North America display skull traits more similar to the coyote than wolves from Eurasia, 56. In 2010, a study found that the coyote was a basal member of the clade that included the Tibetan wolf, the domestic dog, the Mongolian wolf, and the Eurasian wolf, with the Tibetan wolf diverging early from wolves and domestic dogs. In 2016, a whole genome DNA study proposed, based on the assumptions made, that all of the North American wolves and coyotes diverged from a common ancestor about 51,000 years ago, 58-59. However, the proposed timing of the wolf-coyote divergence conflicts with the discovery of a coyote-like specimen in strata dated to 1 Mia, 60. The study also indicated that all North American wolves have a significant amount of coyote ancestry and all coyotes some degree of wolf ancestry, and that the red wolf and eastern wolf are highly admixed with different proportions of gray wolf and coyote ancestry. Genetic studies relating to wolves or dogs have inferred phylogenetic relationships based on the only reference genome available, that of the boxer dog. In 2017, the first reference genome of the wolf Canis lupus lupus was mapped to aid future research, 61. In 2018, a study looked at the genomic structure and admixture of North American wolves, wolf-like canids, and coyotes using specimens from across their entire range that mapped the largest dataset of nuclear genome sequences against the wolf reference genome. The study supports the findings of previous studies that North American gray wolves and wolf-like canids were the result of complex gray wolf and coyote mixing. A polar wolf from Greenland and a coyote from Mexico represented the purest specimens. The coyotes from Alaska, California, Alabama, and Quebec show almost no wolf ancestry. Coyotes from Missouri, Illinois, and Florida exhibit 5 to 10% wolf ancestry. There was 40% wolf to 60% coyote ancestry in red wolves, 60% wolf to 40% coyote in eastern timber wolves, and 75% wolf to 25% coyote in the Great Lakes wolves. There was 10% coyote ancestry in Mexican wolves and the Atlantic coast wolves, 5% in Pacific coast and Yellowstone wolves, and less than 3% in Canadian archipelago wolves. If a third canid had been involved in the admixture of the North American wolf-like canids, then its genetic signature would have been found in coyotes and wolves, which it has not. In 2018, Whole genome sequencing was used to compare members of the genus Canis. The study indicates that the common ancestor of the coyote and gray wolf has genetically admixed with a ghost population of an extinct, unidentified canid. The ghost canid was genetically close to the dole and had evolved after the divergence of the African wild dog from the other canid species. The basal position of the coyote compared to the wolf is proposed to be due to the coyote retaining more of the mitochondrial genome from the unknown extinct canid. Subspecies. Hybridization. Melanistic coyotes owe their color to a mutation that first arose in domestic dogs. Coyotes occasionally mate with domestic dogs, sometimes producing crosses colloquially known as coy dogs. 78 such matings are rare in the wild, as the mating cycles of dogs and coyotes do not coincide, and coyotes are usually antagonistic towards dogs. Hybridization usually only occurs when coyotes are expanding into areas where conspecifics are few and dogs are the only alternatives. Even then, pup survival rates are lower than normal, as dogs do not form pair bonds with coyotes, thus making the rearing of pups more difficult. 79. In captivity, F1 hybrids first generation tend to be more mischievous and less manageable as pups than dogs, and are less trustworthy on maturity than wolf-dog hybrids. Hybrids vary in appearance, but generally retain the coyote's usual characteristics. F1 hybrids tend to be intermediate in form between dogs and coyotes, while F2 hybrids second generation are more varied. Both F1 and F2 hybrids resemble their coyote parents in terms of shyness and intersexual aggression. 1280. Hybrids are fertile and can be successfully bred through for generations. 78 melanistic coyotes owe their black pelts to a mutation that first arose in domestic dogs. 77 A population of non-albino white coyotes in Newfoundland owe their coloration to a melanocordon 1 receptor mutation inherited from golden retrievers. A coywolf hybrid conceived in captivity between a male gray wolf and a female coyote. Coyotes have hybridized with wolves to varying degrees, particularly in eastern North America. The so-called eastern coyote of northeastern North America probably originated in the aftermath of the extermination of gray and eastern wolves in the northeast, thus allowing coyotes to colonize former wolf ranges and mix with the remnant wolf populations. This hybrid is smaller than either the gray or eastern wolf and holds smaller territories, but is in turn larger and holds more extensive home ranges than the typical western coyote. As of 2010, the eastern coyote's genetic makeup is fairly uniform, with minimal influence from eastern wolves or western coyotes. Adult eastern coyotes are larger than western coyotes, with female eastern coyotes weighing 21% more than male western coyotes. 80 to 83 physical differences become more apparent by the age of 35 days, with eastern coyote pups having longer legs than their western counterparts. Differences in dental development also occurs, with tooth eruption being later, and in a different order in the eastern coyote. 80 for aside from its size, the eastern coyote is physically similar to the western coyote. The four color phases range from dark brown to blonde or reddish blonde, though the most common phase is gray-brown, with reddish legs, ears, and flanks. No significant differences exist between eastern and western coyotes in aggression and fighting, though eastern coyotes tend to fight less and are more playful. Unlike western coyote pups, in which fighting precedes play behavior, fighting among eastern coyote pups occurs after the onset of play. 84. Eastern coyotes tend to reach sexual maturity at 2 years of age, much later than in western coyotes. Eastern and red wolves are also products of varying degrees of wolf-coyote hybridization. The eastern wolf probably was a result of a wolf-coyote admixture, combined with extensive backcrossing with parent gray wolf populations. The red wolf may have originated during a time of declining wolf populations in the southeastern woodlands, forcing a wolf-coyote hybridization, as well as backcrossing with local parent coyote populations to the extent that about 75 to 80% of the modern red wolf's genome is of coyote derivation. Behavior, social and reproductive behaviors. The hip slam 80 is a common play behavior. a pack of coyotes in Yellowstone National Park. Like the Eurasian golden jackal, the coyote is gregarious, but not as dependent on conspecifics as more social canid species like wolves are. This is likely because the coyote is not a specialized hunter of large prey as the latter species is. 87. The basic social unit of a coyote pack is a family containing a reproductive female. However, unrelated coyotes may join forces for companionship or to bring down prey too large to attack on their own. Such non-family packs are only temporary and may consist of bachelor males, non-reproductive females, and subadult young. Families are formed in midwinter when females enter estrus. 27. Pair bonding can occur to 3 months before actual copulation takes place. The copulatory tie can last 5 to 45 minutes. 89. A female entering estrus attracts males by scent marking 90 and howling with increasing frequency. 28. A single female in heat can attract up to 7 reproductive males, which can follow her for as long as a month. Although some squabbling may occur among the males, once the female has selected a mate and copulates, the rejected males do not intervene and move on once they detect other estrus females. 27. Unlike the wolf, which has been known to practice both monogamous and bigamous matings, 91. The coyote is strictly monogamous, even in areas with high coyote densities and abundant food. Females that fail to mate sometimes assist their sisters or mothers in raising their pups, or join their siblings until the next time they can mate. The newly mated pair then establishes a territory and either constructs their own den or cleans out abandoned badger, marmot, or skunk herds. During the pregnancy, the male frequently hunts alone and brings back food for the female. The female may line the den with dried grass or with fur pulled from her belly. 27. The gestation period is 63 days, with an average litter size of 6, though the number fluctuates depending on coyote population density and the abundance of food. Coyote pups are born in dens, hollow trees, or under ledges and weigh 200 to 500 grams, 0.44 to 1.10 pounds at birth. They are altricial and are completely dependent on milk for their first 10 days. The incisors erupt at about 12 days, the canines at 16, and the second premolars at 21. Their eyes open after 10 days, by which point the pups become increasingly more mobile, walking by 20 days, and running at the age of 6 weeks. The parents begin supplementing the pup's diet with regurgitated solid food after 12 to 15 days. By the age of 4 to 6 weeks, when their milk teeth are fully functional, the pups are given small food items such as mice, rabbits, or pieces of ungulate carcasses, with lactation steadily decreasing after 2 months. Unlike wolf pups, coyote pups begin seriously fighting as opposed to play fighting prior to engaging in play behavior. A common play behavior includes the coyote hips lamb, 80 by 3 weeks of age. Coyote pups bite each other with less inhibition than wolf pups. By the age of 4 to 5 weeks, pups have established dominance hierarchies and are by then more likely to play rather than fight. 93. The male plays an active role in feeding, grooming, and guarding the pups, but abandons them if the female goes missing before the pups are completely weaned. The den is abandoned by June to July, and the pups follow their parents in patrolling their territory and hunting. Pups may leave their families in August, though can remain for much longer. The pups attain adult dimensions at 8 months and gain adult weight a month later. Territorial and sheltering behaviors, scent marking. Individual feeding territories vary in size from 0.4260 to square kilometers, 0.15 to 20 for square miles. With the general concentration of coyotes in a given area depending on food abundance, adequate denning sites, and competition with conspecifics and other predators. Food short. The coyotes generally mark their territories by raised leg urination and ground scratching. Like wolves, coyotes use a den, usually the deserted holes of other species, when gestating and rearing young, though they may occasionally give birth under sagebrushes in the open. Coyote dens can be located in canyons, washouts, coulees, banks, rock bluffs, or level ground. Some dens have been found under abandoned homestead shacks, grain bins, drainage pipes, railroad tracks, hollow logs, thickets, and thistles. The den is continuously dug and cleaned out by the female until the pups are born. A coyote den can have several entrances and passages branching out from the main chamber. 96. A single den can be used year after year. Hunting and feeding behaviors. While the popular consensus is that olfaction is very important for hunting, 97 studies that experimentally investigated the role of olfactory, auditory, and visual cues found that visual cues are the most important ones for hunting in red foxes. 98 and coyotes. Younger animals usually avoid participating in such hunts, with the breeding pair typically doing most of the work. 28. The coyote pursues large prey, typically hamstring the animal, and subsequently then harassing it until the prey falls. Like other canids, the coyote caches excess food. 101 coyotes catch mouse-sized rodents by pouncing, whereas ground squirrels are chased. Although coyotes can live in large groups, small prey is typically caught singly. Coyotes have been observed to kill porcupines in pairs, using their paws to flip the rodents on their backs, then attacking the soft underbelly. Only old and experienced coyotes can successfully prey on porcupines, with many predation attempts by young coyotes resulting in them being injured by their prey's quills. 100 coyotes sometimes urinate on their food, possibly to claim ownership over it. 95. 103 recent evidence demonstrates that at least some coyotes have become more nocturnal in hunting, presumably to avoid humans. Coyotes may occasionally form mutualistic hunting relationships with American badgers, assisting each other in digging up rodent prey. 106. The relationship between the two species may occasionally border on apparent friendship, as some coyotes have been observed laying their heads on their badger companions or licking their faces without protest. The amicable interactions between coyotes and badgers were known to pre-Columbian civilizations, as shown on a jar found in Mexico dated to 1250 to 1300 CE depicting the relationship between the two. Food scraps, pet food, and animal feces may attract a coyote to a trash can. Body language. Being both a gregarious and solitary animal, the variability of the coyote's visual and vocal repertoire is intermediate between that of the solitary foxes and the highly social wolf. 87. The aggressive behavior of the coyote bears more similarities to that of foxes than it does that of wolves and dogs. An aggressive coyote arches its back and lowers its tail. 109. Unlike dogs, which solicit playful behavior by performing a play bow followed by a play leap, play in coyotes consists of a bow, followed by side-to-side head flexions and a series of spins and dives. Although coyotes will sometimes bite their playmates' scruff as dogs do, they typically approach low and make upward-directed bites. Combatants approach each other waving their tails and snarling with their jaws open. Though fights are typically silent, males tend to fight in a vertical stance, while females fight on all four paws. Fights among females tend to be more serious than ones among males, as females seize their opponent's forelegs, throat, and shoulders. A yelping coyote. The coyote has been described as the most vocal of all wild North American mammals. 111. 112. Its loudness and range of vocalizations was the cause for its binomial name Canis latrans, meaning barking dog. At least 11 different vocalizations are known in adult coyotes. These sounds are divided into three categories: agonistic and alarm, greeting, and contact. Vocalizations of the first category include woofs, growls, huffs, barks, bark howls, yelps, and high-frequency whines. Woofs are used as low-intensity threats or alarms and are usually heard near den sites, prompting the pups to immediately retreat into their burrows. Growls are used as threats at short distances, but have also been heard among pups playing and copulating males. Huffs are high-intensity threat vocalizations produced by rapid expiration of air. Barks can be classed as both long-distance threat vocalizations and alarm calls. Bark howls may serve similar functions. Yelps are emitted as a sign of submission, while high-frequency whines are produced by dominant animals acknowledging the submission of subordinates. Greeting vocalizations include low-frequency whines, WOWOWs, and group yip howls. Low-frequency whines are emitted by submissive animals and are usually accompanied by tail wagging and muzzle nibbling. The sound known as WOWOO wow has been described as a greeting song. The group yip howl is emitted when two or more pack members reunite and may be the final act of a complex greeting ceremony. Contact calls include lone howls and group howls, as well as the previously mentioned group yip howls. The lone howl is the most iconic sound of the coyote and may serve the purpose of announcing the presence of a lone individual separated from its pack. Group howls are used as both substitute group yip howls and as responses to either lone howls, group howls, or group yip howls. Habitat: an urban coyote in Bernal Heights, San Francisco. Prior to the near extermination of wolves and cougars, the coyote was most numerous in grasslands inhabited by bison, pronghorn, elk, and other deer, doing particularly well in short-grass areas with prairie dogs. Though it was just as much at home in semi-arid areas with sagebrush and jackrabbits, or in deserts inhabited by cactus, kangaroo rats, and rattlesnakes. As long as it was not in direct competition with the wolf, the coyote ranged from the Sonoran Desert to the alpine regions of adjoining mountains or the plains and mountainous areas of Alberta. With the extermination of the wolf, the coyote's range expanded to encompass broken forests from the tropics of Guatemala and the northern slope of Alaska. Coyotes walk around 5 to 16 kilometers 3 to 10 miles per day, often along trails such as logging roads and paths. They may use iced-over rivers as travel routes in winter. They are often crepuscular, being more active around evening and the beginning of the night than during the day. However, in urban areas, coyotes are known to be more nocturnal, likely to avoid encounters with humans. 113. Like many canids, coyotes are competent swimmers, reported to be able to travel at least 0.8 kilometers, 0.5 miles across water. Diet: a coyote with a scrap of road-killed pronghorn in Seedscady National Wildlife Refuge, Wyoming. The coyote is ecologically the North American equivalent of the Eurasian golden jackal, 115. Likewise, the coyote is highly versatile in its choice of food, but is primarily carnivorous, with 90% of its diet consisting of meat. Prey species include bison largely as carrion, white-tailed deer, mule deer, moose, elk, bighorn sheep, pronghorn, rabbits, hares, rodents, birds, especially galliforms, roadrunners, young water birds and pigeons and doves, amphibians except toads, lizards, snakes, turtles and tortoises, fish, crustaceans, and insects. Coyotes may be picky over the prey they target, as animals such as shrews, moles, and brown rats do not occur in their diet in proportion to their numbers. Hunting for gophers, California, terrestrial animals or burrowing small mammals such as ground squirrels and associated species marmots. Prairie dogs, chipmunks as well as voles, pocket gophers, kangaroo rats, and other ground-favoring rodents may be quite common foods, especially for lone coyotes. 116, 117, 118 examples of specific primary mammal prey include eastern cottontail rabbits, 13-line ground squirrels, and white-footed mice. 119 more unusual prey include fishers, 120 young black bear cubs, 121 harp seals, 122 and rattlesnakes. Coyotes kill rattlesnakes mostly for food, but also to protect their pups at their dens, by teasing the snakes until they stretch out and then biting their heads and snapping and shaking the snakes. 123. Birds taken by coyotes may range in size from thrashers, larks and sparrows to adult wild turkeys, and, rarely, brooding adult swans and pelicans. If working in packs or pairs, coyotes may have access to larger prey than lone individuals normally take, such as various prey weighing more than 10 kilograms, 22 pounds, 128, 129. In some cases, packs of coyotes have dispatched much larger prey such as adult odocoileus deer, cow elk, pronghorns, and wild sheep, although the young fawn, calves, and lambs of these animals are considerably more often taken even by packs, as well as domestic sheep and domestic cattle. In some cases, coyotes can bring down prey weighing up to 100 to 200 kilograms, 220 to 440 pounds or more. When it comes to adult ungulates, such as wild deer, they often exploit them when vulnerable, such as those that are infirm, stuck in snow or ice, otherwise winter weakened or heavily pregnant, whereas less wary domestic ungulates may be more easily exploited. Although coyotes prefer fresh meat, they will scavenge when the opportunity presents itself. Excluding the insects, fruit, and grass eaten, the coyote requires an estimated 600 grams, 1.3 pounds of food daily, or 250 kilograms, 550 pounds annually. 27. The coyote readily cannibalizes the carcasses of conspecifics, with coyote fat having been successfully used by coyote hunters as a lure or poison bait. 9. The coyote's winter diet consists mainly of large ungulate carcasses with very little plant matter. Rodent prey increases in importance during the spring, summer, and fall. The coyote feeds on a variety of different produce, including strawberries, 119 blackberries, blueberries, sarsaparillas, 119 peaches, pears, apples, prickly pears, chipotes, persimmons, peanuts, watermelons, cantaloupes, and carrots. During the winter and early spring, the coyote eats large quantities of grass, such as green wheat blades. It sometimes eats unusual items such as cotton cake, soybean meal, domestic animal droppings, beans, and cultivated grains such as maize, wheat, and sorghum. In coastal California, coyotes now consume a higher percentage of marine-based food than their ancestors, which is thought to be due to the extirpation of the grizzly bear from this region. 136. In Death Valley, coyotes may consume great quantities of hawkmoth caterpillars or beetles in the spring flowering months. Enemies and competitors, a comparative illustration of a coyote and a gray wolf. Mountain coyotes see L. lestes cornering a juvenile cougar. In areas where the ranges of coyotes and great wolves overlap, interference, competition, and predation by wolves has been hypothesized to limit local coyote densities. Coyote ranges expanded during the 19th and 20th centuries following the extirpation of wolves, while coyotes were driven to extinction on Isle Royale after wolves colonized the island in the 1940s. One study conducted in Yellowstone National Park, where both species coexist, concluded that the coyote population in the Lamar River Valley declined by 39% following the reintroduction of wolves in the 1990s. While coyote populations involved inhabited areas of the Grand Teton National Park are 33% lower than in areas where they are absent. 138-139. Wolves have been observed to not tolerate coyotes in their vicinity, though coyotes have been known to trail wolves to feed on their kills. Coyotes may compete with cougars in some areas. In the eastern Sierra Nevada, coyotes compete with cougars over mule deer. Cougars normally humans assign discouraging people from feeding coyotes, which can lead to them habituating themselves to human presence, thus increasing the likelihood of attacks. Coyote attacks on humans are uncommon and rarely cause serious injuries due to the relatively small size of the coyote, but have been increasingly frequent, especially by the middle of the 19th century. The coyote was already marked as an enemy by humans. Sharp and Hall, 1978 pg, 41-54. There have been only two confirmed fatal attacks, one on 3-year-old Kelly Keene in Glendale, California, 185, and another on 19-year-old singer-songwriter Taylor Mitchell in Nova Scotia, Canada, 186. In the 30 years leading up to March 2006, at least 160 attacks occurred in the United States, mostly in the Los Angeles County area. 187. Data from United States Department of Agriculture, USDA Wildlife Services, the California Department of Fish and Game, and other sources show that while 41 attacks occurred during the period of 1988 to 1997, 48 attacks were verified from 1998 through 2003. The majority of these incidents occurred in Southern California near the suburban wildland interface. In the absence of the harassment of coyotes practiced by rural people, urban coyotes are losing their fear of humans, which is further worsened by people intentionally or unintentionally feeding coyotes. In such situations, some coyotes have begun to act aggressively toward humans, chasing joggers and bicyclists, confronting people walking their dogs, and stalking small children. 185. Albeit rarely, coyotes in these areas have targeted small children, mostly under the age of 10, though some adults have been bitten. Although media reports of such attacks generally identify the animals in question as simply coyotes, research into the genetics of the eastern coyote indicates those involved in attacks in northeast North America, including Pennsylvania, New York, New England, and eastern Canada, may have actually been coywolves, hybrids of Canis latrans and C. lupus, not fully coyotes. In northeastern Mexico, cougar predation on coyotes continues apace, but coyotes were absent from the prey spectrum of sympatric jaguars, apparently due to differing habitat usage. Other than by gray wolves and cougars, predation on adult coyotes is relatively rare, but multiple other predators can be occasional threats. In some cases, adult coyotes have been preyed upon by both American black and grizzly bears, 140 for American alligators, 145 large Canada lynx, 146 and golden eagles, 147. At kill sites and carrion, coyotes, especially if working alone, tend to be dominated by wolves, cougars, bears, wolverines, and, usually but not always, eagles, i.e., bald and golden. When such larger, more powerful or more aggressive predators such as these come to a shared feeding site, a coyote may either try to fight, wait until the other predator is done, or occasionally share a kill. But if a major danger such as wolves or an adult cougar is present, the coyote will tend to flee. Coyotes rarely kill healthy adult red foxes and have been observed to feed or den alongside them, though they often kill foxes caught in traps. Coyotes may kill fox kits, but this is not a major source of mortality. 156. In Southern California, coyotes frequently kill gray foxes, and these smaller canids tend to avoid areas with high coyote densities. In some areas, coyotes share their ranges with bobcats. These two similarly sized species rarely physically confront one another, though bobcat populations tend to diminish in areas with high coyote densities. 158. Coyotes, however, both single individuals and groups, have been known to occasionally kill bobcats. In most cases, the bobcats were relatively small specimens, such as adult females and juveniles. Coyote attacks by an unknown number of coyotes on adult male bobcats have occurred. In California, coyote and bobcat populations are not negatively correlated across different habitat types. But predation by coyotes is an important source of mortality in bobcats. 157. Biologist Stanley Paul Young noted that in his entire trapping career, he had never successfully saved a captured bobcat from being killed by coyotes, and wrote of 2 incidents wherein coyotes chased bobcats up trees. 107 coyotes have been documented to directly kill Canada lynx on occasion. 165, 166, 167 and compete with them for prey, especially snowshoe hares. 165. In some areas, including central Alberta, lynx are more abundant where coyotes are few. Thus, interactions with coyotes appears to influence lynx populations more than the availability of snowshoe hares. A coyote confronting a dog. As of 2007, coyotes were the most abundant livestock predators in western North America, causing the majority of sheep, goat, and cattle losses. 190. For example, according to the National Agricultural Statistics Service, coyotes were responsible for 60.5% of the 220 per thousand sheep deaths attributed to predation in 2004, 190 to failed verification. The total number of sheep deaths in 2004 comprised 0.2% of the total sheep and lamb population in the United States. 193, which, according to the National Agricultural Statistics Service USDA report, totaled for 0.66 million and 7.80 million heads. Because coyote populations are typically many times greater and more widely distributed than those of wolves, coyotes cause more overall predation losses. United States government agents routinely shoot, poison, trap, and kill about 90,000 coyotes each year to protect livestock. 195. An Idaho census taken in 2005 showed the individual coyotes were 5% as likely to attack livestock as individual wolves. 196. In Utah, more than 11,000 coyotes were killed for bounties totaling over $500,000 in the fiscal year ending June 30, 2017. Livestock guardian dogs are commonly used to aggressively repel predators and have worked well in both fenced pasture and range operations. 198. A 1986 survey of sheep producers in the USA found that 82% reported the use of dogs represented an economic asset. Rewilding cattle, which involves increasing the natural protective tendencies of cattle, is a method for controlling coyotes discussed by Temple Grandin of Colorado State University. 200. This method is gaining popularity among producers who allow their herds to calve on the range and whose cattle graze open pastures throughout the year. A coyote with a typical throat hold on a domestic sheep. Coyotes typically bite the throat just behind the jaw and below the ear when attacking adult sheep or goats, with death commonly resulting from suffocation. Blood loss is usually a secondary cause of death. Calves and heavily fleeced sheep are killed by attacking the flanks or hindquarters, causing shock and blood loss. When attacking smaller prey, such as young lambs, the kill is made by biting the skull and spinal regions, causing massive tissue and bone damage. Small or young prey may be completely carried off, leaving only blood as evidence of a kill. Coyotes usually leave the hide and most of the skeleton of larger animals relatively intact, unless food is scarce, in which case they may leave only the largest bones. Scattered bits of wool, skin, and other parts are characteristic where coyotes feed extensively on larger carcasses. Tracks are an important factor in distinguishing coyote from dog predation. Coyote tracks tend to be more oval-shaped and compact than those of domestic dogs, and their claw marks are less prominent and the tracks tend to follow a straight line more closely than those of dogs. With the exception of sighthounds, most dogs of similar weight to coyotes have a slightly shorter stride. 190 coyote kills can be distinguished from wolf kills by less damage to the underlying tissues in the former. Also, coyote scat tends to be smaller than wolf scat. Coyotes are often attracted to dog food and animals that are small enough to appear as prey. Items such as garbage, pet food, and sometimes feeding stations for birds and squirrels attract coyotes into backyards. About 3 to 5 pets attacked by coyotes are brought into the Animal Urgent Care Hospital of South Orange County, California each week, the majority of which are dogs, since cats typically do not survive the attacks. 200 for scat analysis collected near Claremont, California, revealed that coyotes relied heavily on pets as a food source in winter and spring. At one location in Southern California, coyotes began relying on a colony of feral cats as a food source. Over time, the coyotes killed most of the cats and then continued to eat the cat food placed daily at the colony site by people who were maintaining the cat colony. 185 coyotes usually attack smaller-sized dogs, but they have been known to attack even large, powerful breeds such as the Rottweiler. In exceptional cases, 205 dogs larger than coyotes, such as greyhounds, are generally able to drive them off and have been known to kill coyotes. 206 smaller breeds are more likely to suffer injury or death. Hunting. Coyote tracks compared to those of the domestic dog. Coyote hunting is one of the most common forms of predator hunting that humans partake in. There are not many regulations with regard to the taking of the coyote, which means there are many different methods that can be used to hunt the animal. The most common forms are trapping, calling, and hound hunting. 207 since coyotes are colorblind, seeing only in shades of gray and subtle blues, open camouflages and plain patterns can be used. As the average male coyote weighs 8 to 20 kilograms, 18 to 40 for pounds, and the average female coyote 7 to 18 kilograms 15 to 40 pounds. A universal projectile that can perform between those weights is the .2 to 3 Remington, so that the projectile expands in the target after entry, but before the exit, thus delivering the most energy. Coyotes, being the light and agile animals they are, they often leave a very light impression on terrain. The coyote's footprint is oblong, approximately 6.35 centimeters to 0.5 inches long and 5.08 centimeters 2 inches wide. There are fur claws in both their front and hind paws. The coyote's center pad is relatively shaped like that of a rounded triangle. Like the domestic dog, the coyote's front paw is slightly larger than the hind paw. The coyote's paw is most similar to that of the domestic dog. The hunting of coyotes often results in great wolves being shot in places where the two species still coexist as a result of mistaken identity. Fur of a Canadian coyote. Prior to the mid-19th century, coyote fur was considered worthless. This changed with the diminution of beavers, and by 1860, the hunting of coyotes for their fur became a great source of income, 75 cents to $1.50 per skin for wolfers in the Great Plains. Coyote pelts were of significant economic importance during the early 1950s, ranging in price from $5 to $25 per pelt, depending on locality. 211. The coyote's fur is not durable enough to make rugs. 212, but can be used for coats and jackets, scarves, or muffs. The majority of pelts are used for making trimmings, such as coat collars and sleeves for women's clothing. Coyote fur is sometimes dyed black as imitation silver fox. Coyotes were occasionally eaten by trappers and mountain men during the Western expansion. Coyotes sometimes featured in the feasts of the Plains Indians, and coyote pups were eaten by the indigenous people of San Gabriel, California. The taste of coyote meat has been likened to that of the vulve and is more tender than pork when boiled. Coyote fat, when taken in the fall, has been used on occasion to grease leather or eaten as a spread. Thank you so much for watching.